That's not something you want to bring with you into the business community, right? That's not something you want to bring with you into your personal life. In golf, when I put my club down behind the ball and that ball moves, the ethics of the game, the rules of the game stake there. I'm responsible for that. I have to call a penalty on myself. I have to put up my hand and say, as badly as I want to win this golf tournament, as badly as I want to beat you guys I'm playing with and everybody else in the field, and believe me, for a guy like me, it's bad. To say that I moved the ball and that's a 2-shot penalty. At the end of the day, I think that's what separates golf likely from all the other sports that you're ever going to play. Because there are very, very, very few sports, and none to my knowledge, where the competitors will put their hand up and say that's a penalty. It's an infraction that call it.
Even at the highest of levels, you see that.
Yeah, and then there's many examples we can give you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know if it moves. There's no, the camera, you don't need to be on CBS television for somebody to look at the ball and see that it oscillated and came off its position, or that you went to pull a twig from behind it and it rolled. But that's inconsequential likely of how you're going to hit that shot, and at the end of the day it may not even have an effect on who wins the tournament. But those are the rules of the game, and that's what you taught. That's what my father taught me, and that's what my old pro Carl Vanstone taught us in the beginning in junior golf when I was growing up with the Idlewild. Learning under Carl, who was a great guy, a great man, very strict, and made sure that you respected what the game is all about. And that, at the end of the day, those guys are the backbones of golf. It's not Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, or Vince Palladino on any level. It's the individuals that embrace and teach the game and teach you to respect it. There's ways to go about being successful, and hopefully you can take that, that can carry over into your professional life and your personal life.
As you were growing up playing junior golf, where did you get this fire? Because there are a lot of people that play golf, and there's a lot of good young golfers, and you've seen them come and go, and they don't all continue to rise to an elite position. And even playing on the Canadian Tour, there's a lot of people would say, well, it's only the Canadian Tour. It's like it's not the PGA, but it's like I look at professional hockey players, and you have to you enjoy the game to get to a certain level, but then to take it to that next level, there's some kind of fire that has to be in there.
Yeah,
like you say, it's not just talent. There's something that takes you beyond.
Very few individuals get by purely on talent, and if they do, it's usually exposed later on when they're amongst their peers. And there's a lot of guys in all sports you can probably point your finger at and go, boy, really talented guy, but every coach that coached him wished he had a little bit more fire in his belly, because boy, what he could have done with Alexei Kovalev, kind of theory, and the guy bounces around from team to team. Incredibly talented. You have him on your team, but he'd frustrate you, because could you put what Brad Marchand has in his body, and I think you'd have an unstoppable force. For me, I don't, I guess certainly my father instilled in me that you have to be, if you're going to do anything, if anything's worth doing, it's worth doing it well. And his father's speech to him was, no matter what you do, whether you're a garbage man, bricklayer, car dealer, or professional athlete, be the best. And he was a stonemason and did a lot of work around the Sudbury area, and I think he was regarded as one of the best. My father's aspirations weren't to have 10, 20 dealerships like mine. In his day, he just wanted to be the best dealer, have the best dealership, and I think if he didn't do it, he came pretty close.
And enjoyed time to play golf.
And enjoyed some time with his family, and was also a great father and a good family man. And so I guess I adopted that pretty early on, and when I picked up the golf club, I don't know, there's something special about it. I just loved doing it. Unfortunately for me, as time went on, I think I got to that stage where I didn't like the life of a tour player. I enjoyed the Canadian Tour at times, but it just didn't seem to me to be a sustainable life, no matter how I played. I think golf's romanticized a little bit in modern media when you can watch the top 50 in the world flying in on their private jet and get helicoptered all over the place and sign major endorsement deals. And you got to realize what a very finite percentage that is.
It's not everybody?
No, it's not. And believe me, they're very fortunate to be able to play for those kind of prizes and do that, because certainly that wasn't the case when when the original PGA Tour started up, and even the era of Tom Watson, Jack Nicklaus. I mean, that was just kind of coming onto the forefront, where television brought that extra revenue to golf, and made it a mainstream sport. The sponsors would dig in. Now they make big money, but when you think about what the top 1% makes in any industry, it's significant. And I think with golf, you still have, I think the nature of the sport is still preserved. You still have the true desire to be the best at what they do and to compete and enjoy the game, respect the rules. I don't think it's about money yet. We're all about money yet. And that's another unique thing that golf has. Certainly, I don't think every other sport can say that.
We talked a number of years ago, you and I, about playing on the tours down in the States. And I was surprised at how little difference there is between the top players on those tours and the bottom players. Like the stroke average is
Shot a day.
phenomenally small.
I don't know what the exact number is, but the time I was doing it, about a shot a day would take you from being in the top 100 on the tour to being in Lord knows where, some mini tour, someplace you wouldn't want.
And that's constant. That's week after week.
Yeah, every day.
That pressure. And that's just to get to the point where you may be able to get onto the PGA.
Yeah, maybe.
The big leagues.
And listen, even if you do, look at a guy I grew up playing golf with. I have a lot of respect for, Mike Weir. He's a couple years older than me, and I played for the Ontario juvenile teams when he was playing for the junior teams. And actually, when he was 18, he never even played for the top four. There were two junior teams. There was an A and a B, and he played on the B. His caddy, Brendan Little, for years played on the A team. And so these are, there's a guy who's in Timmins, grinding for a paycheck sponsored by a local dealer in Timmins, and 4 years later he's wearing the green jacket. Those are the stories that you want to read about, but there are 1,000 stories that went the other way, where guys held on for too long and couldn't accept that they weren't going to be, good enough to make the PGA Tour. And even when you do make the PGA Tour, you don't sign a contract.
No.
It's not a 10-year deal for $32 million.
You got to maintain your spot.
This is top 20, 125 and more. Oh, you won last year? Fantastic. We'll see you next year. Oh, you won again? Great. They'll give you a 2-year exemption. And, you get a bunch of top 10s last year? Great, but you're slipping back in the money. If somebody came to me and said, Vince, across all brands, Honda, GM, Chrysler, Ford, Toyota, you name it, you're going to have to be in the top 125 this year, or we're going to have to give your franchise to somebody else. It's a pretty tough way to live, and that's what those guys face every day on the PGA Tour. So, it's a tough life. I think it's an eye-opener for a lot of people to really get down into it and see what's going on with a lot of guys that are trying to make a career of that. They're broke.
But it does really make it pretty tough in terms of focus and concentration. You obviously have taken that into your life outside of golf. Right?
Yeah. Coming back to the car business when I did, I think I led the Canadian Tour Q School through 3 rounds in 96 or 97. And I blew up in the final round, and my heart wasn't in it. I think I had decided before that I wasn't going to pursue professional golf any longer. And left on a Thursday night, flew with my father on Friday to a new car showing for Honda in Banff, had a great time, came back on the Monday and started working for them that Monday. Sold 2 cars that Friday, my first 2 sales, and I never looked back. But when I look back on it now, even the pressures of getting into the business of being a salesperson, which is not an easy job, was nothing compared to what I was facing trying to make a career out of golf. So I don't recommend it for everybody to go through what I went through, because college, was fun but was tough. Professional golf, fun but very tough.
You did get an education?
Yeah, I went to Ohio State University on scholarship, so I spent redshirted my first year there. When I went to Ohio State, we were ranked 6th in the country at the time in NCAA Division I, so a very elite program. It's former Jack Nicklaus, Tom Weiskopf, Johnny Cook, Joey Sindelar, Ed Snead, a lot of great players come from Ohio State. So I spent 5 years in total there, and got a good education. Ohio State's a really special place, and it's somewhere I always go back to and stay in touch with my teammates, and learned how to deal with failure and adversity there. I probably didn't face too much of it before I got to university. It was a bit of an abnormal situation in Northern Ontario to have a kid coming up through golf and playing it like myself and my buddy Brian Savage were at the time. We were probably 2 of the elite juveniles and juniors in the country from Sudbury, Ontario. So it's a mining town.
Yeah.
It's got a golf course open for 4 months of the year if you're lucky. So it was a unique situation. So when I went to college, I realized that there's just like me, there's a fellow from Cleveland, Ohio. There's a fellow from California, and guess what? Next year there's a kid coming from New Zealand and Belgium, and
Yeah, they're all at the same level.
it's a global sport. So my coach was recruiting from all over the world. So you face guys that you were going to face in professional golf, and if you were going to get to where you wanted to go, you had to face them anyway. So went to a very very tough school to crack, and I did. I made the lineup and had a pretty decent career in college. So once again, many levels over my golf life and what I probably take from the game and what I can use in my business and personal life.
For young people today, there are, I don't know how many juniors are at the Idlewild, but you see them. And obviously, being where you are at the Idlewild and being where you are in Sudbury, there are a lot of young people who are playing juniors who know that Vince Palladino played on the Canadian Tour. And it doesn't matter whether you're 9 or 10 or 11. I mean, young kids all have this aspiration of rising to the top and being a star. Very few of them start golf thinking, oh, this is going to be a good pastime when I'm 60.
Yeah.
A lot of them have that passion and that drive.
Yeah. I think a lot of them start because their buddies are doing it,
Right.
and their dad wants them to do it, or their mom wants them to do it, or it's socially, acceptable or sought after. Golf's become a global game for all ages and in all parts of the world. I think, what those kids face is a great journey, because really what it ends up to be is it's going to teach you a lot of great life lessons that you're going to take with you, and it really is, as you and I know, it's a game for a lifetime. And I'm going to Ireland with my father next year. He's 82 years old by the time he gets there, and we did it 2 years ago, and he's going to walk every round of golf, and he's going to play with his son, and where else do you get to do that? I can't go play basketball with my 82-year-old father or go volley in tennis, but golf affords you to do that. It's a game for life. So I think when kids get into the game, they do it for a variety of reasons. I don't see a lot of them that are truly passionate about it. I mean, I think right now, there's 2 young fellows from the Idlewild that probably have the same enjoyment level as I had and Brian had in golf growing up, and probably maybe similar desire, but desire is tough to measure. I mean, I think you're never going to know what kind of desire is deep down inside an individual until he gets to the highly hyper-competitive, 16 to 18 year area where you truly are a junior. A 16-year-old could easily win a national championship, and you're certainly going to be recruited by colleges. When you get in that arena, if you still want to be the best, and you still have the desire, and you still have what it takes, and you're willing to put in the time and effort and the discipline to beat that guy beside you who's maybe more talented than you, but you need to outwork him. That's when it really starts to unfold, I think, and that's when you can look at a guy and go, this guy's going to beat the tournament. Before then, tremendous talents. I've seen a lot of them growing up that were probably as talented as I ever was, but weren't able to manage themselves possibly under pressure, weren't able to overcome some of the adversity. And then a lot of them just weren't willing to put in the work that was required. I think of many coaches have told me many things over the years, and one of my coaches always said to me, listen, holding the trophy is the reward. That's the fun part. The tough part is being ready to win that trophy. And that all the hard work happens well before that. You look at a guy like Rory McIlroy, he's 22 years old. You watch that interview on the Faraday Show and you really listen to the progression of his career. This kid's been lined up to do that since he was 5. He's thought that way. His father's kind of groomed him to be that. And so he feels entitled because I think he really feels like he's worked as hard as anybody else does, and he's as talented and he deserves it. So good things happen when you combine all those things.
The vast majority of golfers will never achieve that level of expertise on a regular basis. And I imagine you've sent some of your friends and some of the people around the Idlewild that you played with home very happy when they've happened to have had an opportunity to have a lower score than you and play with you. I mean, you can't, in golf, you can't be at that the top of your game every game because there's too many factors. So why are we not seeing more young people come into golf? Not just at the Ottawa, but all over. Because I don't really think junior golf has taken off as much as a lot of people really wish they would have.
It's a good point.
What is
I
it?
think there's some social barriers there, unfortunately. I mean, I think, Tiger's first tee program in the U.S. is doing a great job of addressing that and trying to get clubs into the hands of underprivileged children who would, maybe inner city children or children that can't afford it would never think of picking up a golf club, but they can access a basketball, or they can grab a baseball, or they can get their hands on a football, or they have opportunities to get to those other sports. There's a great program starting to gain some speed in Canada that actually I'll be sponsoring up here. It's Callaway Clubs for Kids program, and it's basically